I think what we'll do is we'll pull up that spreadsheet and we'll talk a little bit about it, and maybe build a lineup or two and talk about some of the ships and why we might choose them, just because that's fun, and take any questions or discussion points from chat. All right, this is our spreadsheet. What I'm going to do is grab the old Clyde here. We'll slide me over to the corner. Nobody puts Clyde in the corner. Okay, so this year for clan battles, or this season, I should say, for clan battles, World of Warships took a look at what they've been offering us, and one of the things they wanted to try to offer us was ship diversity. And so they like the idea of giving people a lot of choices for ships, but they do recognize that in constrained environments like clan battles, certain ships have a lot of power. I'm going to use an example here of ships like Napoli, right? This is something you and I have talked about a lot, Skada, over the last several months. Napoli is way more powerful in a clan battle than it is in a random battle, because its stealth is more powerful. It's not going to get spotted by aircraft. Its armor is really tanky, and it doesn't have nearly as many angles to be worried about taking damage from, things like that. So ships like Napoli, very powerful in a clan battle, and pretty powerful in a random battle, but nowhere near the same level of power as it has in a more constrained environment with fewer players. So they recognize that they have ships like that, which cause problems in a 7 or 6 player environment. And so when they spread this across 2 tiers, they went crazy with what I refer to as game making, which is designing a season of clan battles, or, you know, if you're a war gamer, it'd be like designing a wargaming scenario. If you're a dungeon master for D&D, it'd be designing an adventure for your players. You're building a scenario, you're building a game that should be hopefully fun for the people you're trying to entertain. And so what we have is a clan battle season that spans 2 tiers, tiers 8 and 9, and has a boatload of restrictions, no pun intended, but pun enjoyed, where we have different ships that are on the more powerful side when in a clan battles type environment that have some restrictions on them. You're allowed to have 2 tier 9 ships and 4 tier 8 ships, or you can have all tier 8 ships if you want. You can have a maximum of 2 tier 9s, no carriers, no submarines. And then they created this right here. I wish I could gesture over here, but this big graphic which shows all of these different rules. They put ships into groups: Group A, Group B, Group C, Group D, Group E, and then all of these hybrid battleships are considered to be members of groups B, C, D, and E. So this is really tricky and kind of complicated, basically. And what's going on with this is that in a normal season of clan battles, there might be a couple of restrictions, and they might add a couple more later on. But I'm looking at this and I'm thinking about my clan, where I have a lot of players who don't play all the classes, don't have all the ships, and I have some players who do have everything. But at the end of the day, when, you know, somebody rotates out who doesn't have or play everything, and somebody else rotates in, the ships that those players selected affect what other players can play. So changing one ship could have ripple effects that make things kind of complicated. And then I also noticed that, like, when we started talking about what ships we could play, obviously we had a lot of jokes and some fun in the Wrecked Discord, but some of the things I noticed were pretty much everybody suggested like a tier 9 ship they'd play, and then obviously some tier 8 ships as well. We talked about ships like Lenin and Massachusetts and things like that, and whether or not those would be viable, and where you'd want to use what tier 8s and what tier 9s, things like that. And so I thought to myself, well, I need to start being able to figure out some lineups and understand what people are going to play. So the end result is this spreadsheet. You can watch the video to understand exactly all how it works. But at the end of the day, this is what we've got here. Scott, I'm going to send you the link. I'm going to make this editable for you and send you the link to this one, so you can.
The one that you are looking at?
Yes. Okay. So you'll be able to manipulate that on stream. Shall we talk a little bit about ships? Maybe build a lineup? Like when we're talking about battleships, if we look at the limit that's down here, I think a lot of people might start their clan with, or their clan lineup with battleships. And one of the things about this season is that the hybrid battleships are limited quite aggressively. In other words, if you choose to take a hybrid battleship, it's going to affect the destroyers that you can take. And it's going to affect the battleships and the super heavy cruisers you can take, because Alaska and Kronshtadt are down here kind of in, you know, this section. I can't really click on top of it. You guys can't see my mouse, but what do we think about hybrids? What do we think about this Group D that has a Massachusetts, a Lenin, a Ruprecht in it? And obviously we've banned Musashi and Georgie from the outset. And I'm assuming
So, like,
that week one, you can have like 6 battleships if you want. I'm moving beyond that. Let's go to week 2 and beyond and kind of talk about
okay.
real
Yeah, I was just gonna say,
lineups.
so like week 1 is planned to be clown shoes, but after
You
that,
can, I mean, if you want to address week 1 a little bit, that's fine because I think that's kind of
no,
fun and
it's
people
mostly
should,
just been
you
like,
know,
oh, eight Bismarck or 6 Bismarcks or whatever. It's just like, okay.
people are going to do dumb
Six
things. Yeah.
Zetons, you get a lot of that. So move on to the concept that is
Like a
week 2
real
and
build.
also, I'm gonna point this out now because it made me laugh earlier. Check the contents of C5.
I've seen this, and I don't know if it's actually in this copy.
Oh, it
is. It is. Okay. So it says up here, secret message from Odie. Odie has left me a message.
that was from when we tested this with you a couple weeks ago, and I've thought it was funny ever since. And he DM'd me, and he's like, "It's still there. It's still in C5." Okay, so when we look at this whole thing, and we talked about this, it's so weird how they laid out this, as you were referring it to the gaming of this.
Yeah.
I was playing with this when we were testing it, and it gets like onerous to like make these lists, and it's like, man, I just want to play with the unrestricted ship so I don't have to think about it.
And that's what's funny is you're right. It's not that you don't think the game they've invented is interesting. It's that I don't want to have to figure this out. And what I don't want to do is explain it to 5 other people.
So like I'm like, okay, so like you look
That's
at the band, like we didn't really do like the clan battles talk in this, but like okay, Musashi and Georgia are banned. We all know why they're banned, right? Musashi's a tier 10 at tier 9, and Georgia is overpowered, and so it's banned, which is too bad because I would love to have played Georgia in clans and tried that out. I don't even think the last time we had the tier 9 clan battle season, which was like 18 months ago or 2 years ago, that you could use Georgia for more than like a week. Then you've got this weird clump of like the hybrid, and using them excludes, like, if you use Delaware, max of 1 across groups B. So if you use 1 Delaware, if I read this right, I can't use any of these other ships, right?
If you use a Delaware, it consumes a slot in group B, C, D, and E. So if you use Delaware, what that means is you can't take Alaska or Kronshtadt, and you can't take Lenin, Massachusetts, or Ruprecht. And in group B, for example, you can only take 1 ship. So if you took a Laterable, you couldn't also take a Fantask and a Delaware, right?
Roger.
It's a little complicated with that cross-cutting hybrid group.
So like I like Delaware well enough. Obviously, I played with Louisiana a little bit like the last week of last season, and it was fun. It's just like Giggletown because I like Louisiana and it's dumb.
Right.
But
right.
like I wouldn't play Nebraska because I don't like Nebraska. Kearsarge is probably arguably the best of those battleships, at least if you're worried about the main gun power. It feels more consistent.
I definitely.
But then you're using the rocket planes as opposed to those bombers, and Delaware's bombers are just really good at clobbering destroyers. So.
Yeah, you wouldn't choose to use Nebraska. Nebraska, if you're going to do a hybrid, you might as well take a 9. If you're going to take a tier 8 battleship, I just can't imagine taking a Nebraska. That feels like a mistake.
I could see a world where you're going to do, if you want it, like, okay, so you're in a smaller clan and you have Nebraska and you don't have Delaware yet, go play Nebraska and get some XP on the back of your friends, maybe.
Yeah.
But like, and then if you had a guy if you were running like an Alaska and a Benham or something at the same time, right? Like, or
those are both your 9s.
But those are your 9s.
You've consumed your 9s.
Do that. I could maybe see that, but Nebraska is just, with the 6 guns, it's just limiting.
Yeah.
I just, I don't really enjoy that one. Like,
and it's funky. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so and Kearsarge's Tiny Tims, its rockets shouldn't be ignored. I know people really like the bombs right now, but the rockets can do work if you land them.
Kearsarge is really good if you're good at using rocket planes, and they hit hard and they light fires and they do really well. It's a good ship for what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, like when I assume this season, since we're running with 6, we're running with 1 battleship. I don't know how often I'll end up getting to play Battleship. The last couple seasons I've been kind of bounced from that and back into cruiser. But if I was playing Battleship and I was saying like, we're doing this, like, Lenin is so strong, and and really
Yeah.
Really powerful. It's hard not to want to play Lenin. When we did tier 8 clan battles though a couple seasons ago, I don't think I ever played Lenin. I played a lot of Atlantico.
You did, and I like Atlantico still.
Like I really liked Atlantico for that tier 8 season, but that's more of an acquired taste. I obviously played Massachusetts some because Massachusetts is pretty good still.
If we
Prince Ruprecht's interesting to have there as a 9 because I really like Prince Ruprecht, and it kind of gets overshadowed because everybody goes straight to the 10. But I do like Prince Ruprecht.
Ruprecht is a good boat. It is a good boat. It does consume a tier 9 slot, and I think I don't know that it's the worst place to use one, honestly. I think a lot of I don't know. I'm going to plug in what I think is a reasonable build. This is the build that I came up with today. And it was because someone on YouTube said, what would you recommend? And I'm like, shoot, this is such a complicated problem. I don't know. So let me pull that up while you're chatting about Ruprecht and
three Chapayevs, a Poltava, Kyiv.
I don't think that was it, actually.
A Lazo.
Let's see if I can find that comment. Just so I can recreate it because I can't quite remember exactly.
I just look at this list. I feel like Alaska is it's really probably kind of hard not to take Alaska since you're only taking one battleship anyway. And I'm sure it'll happen. But like in clans like ours, like Alaska just brings so much utility and its guns are so good that I feel like when we did the tier 8 season last time, we had an Alaska most of the time. Or no, we didn't have an Alaska.
We did run some Congress for a little while.
Somebody might have run Congress a little bit, but
yeah, we did.
I think I like Kronshtadt a lot, but Kronstadt's really an interesting ship because people think, people who've been around the block a while as far as like how long premiums were made available before they were yanked. A lot of people think that Smolensk was the ship that was yanked fastest, but actually Kronshtadt was like the shortest available. That was a free XP ship if memory serves. And it had the shortest run before it was pulled and has never returned outside of premium containers. And I like Kronshtadt. Its HE does not to be trifled with either. It has good HE. It's got good range and 12 km radar. I had a Kronshtadt build that I think I ran that tier 9 clan battle season where I ran I had the radar duration jacked out to 40 seconds or something, running all these different crazy mods. I wasn't running concealment. I was running the 5th slot module that makes your consumables last longer. And just ran crazy radar duration on it. And it's got that 12 km radar, which is pretty strong.
Yeah.
But I don't expect that we'll see a lot of Kronstadts because I don't think it's a boat that's that common anymore.
Kronshtadt has two problems, and you've outlined the first one beautifully, which is that it's not that common, it's not that popular. I do think, gosh, you could get it out of Santa boxes, right? So I think some people were getting it recently. The other reason is that I think Alaska is a little more accurate, and it has both radar and hydros, where Crony only has radar. And so I think with the propensity for something like a Benham or whatever being in the match, people are going to lean on the hydros from Alaska there. I
like Kronshtadt, even though Kronstadt's guns are kind of wonky.
I like Crony, but
they have some accuracy issues, but I like that they're Russian rail guns.
Yes, yeah.
Anyway,
and Snow talks about Alaska's troll armor. So I
figure you're going to see Alaska. So this is your lineup that you built.
So yeah, I had a user come through and said, hey, I think these ships are cool. What would you do for a full lineup? And I was like, geez, I don't know. So I thought about it, and I don't really think this is perfect. But what I've got is 5 ships picked here, and one of them is kind of suspect because it's just hilarious, and that is the Benham. But if I ignore the Benham for a second, there's a Lenin at the top, because I like Lenin for the battleship. I think you could go for Massachusetts as well for the obvious reasons that both of those ships are on the ban list. Massachusetts is incredibly tanky in that it's really healable. It can heal a lot, and thus it has a lot of staying power. You could, and then of course I'm anchoring this entire build around Alaska. I'm spending one of my tier 9s on Alaska, which would be fantastic to do. I've gone with a Chapayev for a radar with also some DPM. When Alaska radars somebody, it often needs a little bit of help to get the kill. It does get a long radar, but its reload time is long enough that it doesn't always get conversions by itself. And so Chapayev would be there to have some, not so much DPM, but rate of fire, although it does bring DPM to the table as well. But that rate of fire lets it respond well to team uses of radar to get conversion kills there. Went with Lo Yang and Benham for my destroyers. I think Benham's a little bit of a meme, but I think it will get used and to good effect because of people who are good in Benham are really good in Benham, and its concealment is just so dang low. And then player 6 right now is unspec'd. And what I'd like to do, what I'd probably start off with, is a cruiser in the player 6 slot. And probably go for something with some with a heal and with some ability to damage destroyers. Ice Cube just said, what about Kutuzov? Exactly. I think you'd look at, although Kutuzov doesn't have a heal, I think you'd look at like a Kutuzov, a Bayard, or a Mines for a kind of a rate of fire or a DPM ship. Or you could look for like an Edinburgh or an Otago, which could kind of hang on the sides. And Edinburgh could either bring smoke or it could bring radar, whichever is more comfortable for your team. And then somebody threw out Baltimore. That was GMAC. I think a Baltimore or a Cleveland will be popular picks. But I think I've kind of got my radars in Alaska and in Chappie. So that's the only reason I left Baltimore and Cleveland off. Although I think if I was going for one of those, I'd go with Baltimore like you suggested, GMAC. And then the third option would be to put in like a Litterable, Le Terrible. And so if you threw that in, if you decided to go with a more destroyer heavy mix, but I think I'd start with a cruiser and then see what the meta is, and then try to shift towards something that responded better to what we were seeing out there. Now, Skada, I imagine you've probably got some different ideas or something. What do you think of this as a lineup? What are its strengths? What are its weaknesses? And what might you do differently or what have you?
I think just looking at that group, and I understand throwing Benham in there as the 9, but I think you'll see Mogador a lot more. And so
I went back and forth on that one.
I think in it, and you know, so I would probably say, you know, if you were gonna run like 3DD mix rather than like Lo Yang and Benham, I might spend the 9 on Mogador and then have the third DD.
I think if I was
I'd
doing
have
that,
maybe have the third DD be like Cossack. Or I really like the Kid, but I don't know how competitive it'll be in this mode without any kind of sensors.
Yeah, I think if you were going 3DDs, I like pushing that Mogador up and either doing Mogador, Le Terrible, and then something spotty like Cossack or Lo Yang, or doing that Cossack and Lo Yang with a Mogador. I think that's a great mix.
Lo Yang's nice because of the hydros and it still has like a lot of torps, whereas if you go to Cossack, you're down to that's terrible like single rack bad angle torps.
Yeah, the DPM goes way up if you can use it, but in that scenario, I think you'd be using it for the spotter, right?
I'm not the right guy to talk to Cossack, though. I've never been a huge fan of that boat.
Yeah.
I think if I was going to do another cruiser here, I would probably want it to be something with rate of fire over like, because like you could still throw like freaking Cherbourg in there, which was a contested thing last Tier 8 clan battle season.
You could, yep.
You know, you could have that another big gun cruiser with at least hydros, but I would rather have, if I was going to have another cruiser there, like you brought up, like Mines obviously is a DPM monster. Somebody mentioned Kutuzov. Obviously, I'm surprised how the mighty have fallen that Kutuzov is not on this graphic anywhere.
It's not on the list. Yeah, I was really surprised. I looked at the cruiser restrictions and I said, they're really just restricting one kind of cruiser. Big, meaty, alpha damage healing cruisers. And Schroder doesn't really do the alpha damage like the other 3 do. Well, Carnot's more of a fire guy too, but like, you know what I mean? Like they don't have any restrictions on things like a Kutuzov. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I mean, so that surprises me that that's not in there, but so you could run something like that. You don't really need like smoke Kutuzov. You don't need Kutuzov smoke though with if you had Lo Yang and Benham, because you've got like both of those have really long. I mean, obviously Benham has American smokes and Lo Yang smokes are not short. So if you were trying to like smoke in, like you could smoke in a Chappie and just run it that way and do, you know, play it out like that. You mentioned Edinburgh. I like the idea of that other cruiser. If I'm bringing another cruiser, it having a heal.
Yep. That's why I was thinking like Edinburgh or Otago. Yeah.
And I think, Edinburgh and Otago, and I think when we talked about this a couple weeks ago, I was talking about, well, there's a perfect use for that star Edinburgh.
Yeah.
Because I could put my Mino captain or my Edgar captain or somebody high point on it because it's a premium and I don't have to mess around. I mean, that's always the rub when we're doing these like tier 8 clan battles. If you're not running premiums and you're running tech tree boats, what kind of captain do you have? Do you have to move a guy and pay to do it? And that's always something. And I feel for clans and for players like we talked about that don't have, like, this lineup you've built is 4 premiums so far.
Oh, I'm building from the whole list, right? This isn't available to everybody. Right. Hey, I want to. Sorry, finish your thought.
I think if you're trying to build in and you're trying to do 8-9 teams and maybe you don't have, most people don't have a 21 point captain on an 8, and so then you're like, I got to move a guy or do whatever, and that's always kind of the bummer with these lower tier clan battles.
$2, right? Like, or a bunch of free.
You shouldn't have to pay $2 to be involved in clan battles, though. Like,
I agree.
It sucks.
We got a bunch of comments in chat over here. I'm going to rapid fire respond to them. I'll throw them to you two to see what you think. Gaelic Knight says, what about Ostergotland? I think Ostergotland's a good ship. I don't know if I'd spend one of my tier 9 points when I could go with the tier 8, which is called the Uland, which would be really, really close. But if I had a free tier 9 slot and I was going to go with an Uland, I think Ostergotland would be fine if you've got a strong player in that. Helmet says, what about the black? I think black is going to be a popular pick for a tier 9, and you could absolutely swap this Benham out and put a black in there, which I think is actually in a different group. Where's the black?
It's not in any of those groups.
Oh, it's not in a group. That's right.
It's not limited. We talked about this too, which seems crazy to me.
Yeah, so
black
you can
is so good. And I don't care that it has those slow torpedoes. They hit hard, and it's a ton of fun. Like,
well, it's got smoke and radar. What a beautiful combination! Because you can contest a cap, you can push out another destroyer, or potentially kill it. And the black can be the second radar you use. If you got a Chappie or an Alaska in position, they get it started. That guy thinks he got away, and then bam, you hit him with the black radar, and he's gone. Right? Like, and that's if you screw up the first one, which hopefully you don't. What a what a powerful combination. So good pick on that one.
Yeah, and you could do the same thing with Shen Yang and with
with the Pan
or with Chung Mu if you wanted to, and run radar Mu or radar Shen Yang, and there's no limitations on that. Also, by the time this clan battle season happens, we'll be in early access for the Pan Euro DD split that comes out in 12.4,
and those are a whole new mixed bag that we'll have to see how the community responds to.
Ostensibly, you'll probably get to the point during the season where the 8 or the 9 people have the whales have them, and the 8 and the 9 both have radar in that line as well. They have radar and smoke
as well. Short radars, but
Yep. So there's that coming as well. So there's a lot of tier 8 is such a gold mine. Not only for premiums, as well we know, because they put so many premiums at tier 8 because it was like the sweet spot that they could get people to spend money on, which is kind of crazy to think of as much money as they charge for premium. But and then there's also just like pretty much tier 8 for a long time. Tier 8 tech tree boats were really good, and the 9s were junk, and then the 10s were good again. And there's a lot of boats at tier 8 in the tech tree that people just are fond of. So a lot of interesting choices, and that's why a tool like this is so helpful, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you need this tool to have this conversation. But what I like about it, and this is of course me saying, why don't you use this free spreadsheet I made you? What I like about it is you and I can get in here and we can sit here and flip these cards back and forth and kind of talk about it. And there's a visual reference that we can share with.
We all can't because I don't have the right access to actually flip any of the cards.
My goodness, I'm sorry.
But if I did,
I'll fix.
If I did. I can flip a card.
There you go. You can flip cards now. Sorry. No, I'm forgetful.
I have to refresh it.
Yeah. So this, the other thing, there was a few more comments. Serevna asked a while ago, and you already gotten an answer at Serevna, but it says, how many tier 9 slots do you get? The answer is 2. You can have 2 tier 9 boats. Siegfried suggested by Brand. I think Siegfried could be a big ship for people looking to replace a battleship, right? And that's the reason you'd take Alaska as well. But Alaska, of course, brings that radar sensor, which is going to be hard to ignore. But Siegfried with 380s, I mean, you could totally see somebody bringing a Siegfried.
That's that one. Good. It was a good comment when we're looking at this list in Group A, and like, okay, they're blocking Cherbourg because of what happened last Tier 8 season, where you had bunches of ship works, right? They're blocking Brest ostensibly for the same reason, and Carno kind of gets lumped in there, although Carno plays differently and whatever.
She's different.
Even though your hot take may have said Schroder was something to be used, I think Schroder is hot garbage, and I don't know why.
Schroder is very much in the middle.
Like they're really it's fine, I guess, if you're like, secondaries are really going to get a job done, but like they're not banning or they're not blocking the use of Aegir or Siegfried, and Siegfried's like a really good boat. I know not everybody has it.
Yeah.
And I was looking at this list of stuff, right? How many tier 9 super premiums exist right now? Hector, that's not on here anywhere. Maybe it's not that scary, but it's pretty good. Siegfried is not on here as a banned thing. Vallejo is not on here as a banned thing. Now Vallejo is kind of interesting boat, but hey, it's not on here, and it's like a steel ship, right?
And it is a DPM monster as well. It's not the tankiest, but
there's a bunch of boats that are that I think could be on this like thing that aren't, and I'm guessing, it's either for like reasons of them, getting more of those boats out into the world, or they just don't feel like they're that competitive. But there's a lot of interesting boats that aren't on this thing limited that I think are worth trying.
That's for sure. And I think what the problem with this little poster is, we're all going to look at that and be like, well, this is where I have to start shopping. But you're not wrong. I mean, we talked about black, and you just rattled off a number of more ships that are on that unrestricted list that are worth bringing. And I think that people might miss them. And this spreadsheet does not necessarily help make that clear. You can go to this data tab, by the way. This is where all the lists come from. So if you want to shop on the big list, you can come here. ZF6, by the way, not restricted, right? That's a fantastic boat. Velos, not restricted. We talked about Sun Yat-sen. I think it's the only thing with 457s that's not restricted. Also, Riga exists. And, Riga's not Petro, but it's Riga, right? I mean, Riga could be useful. So, I mean, when you scroll up and start looking at these boats and see what's in here, Brand mentioned Minnesota earlier, which I think in the hands of the right player is an absolute murder tool. I mean, that's a fantastic machine if you can use it well. So, I mean, there's a bunch of stuff in here that's not restricted that's worth picking. Chapayev, I mentioned. I think Chapayev's a really strong boat. I think if you're going to have a wide running flanker, Bayard, I suggested earlier, but honestly, Charles Martel, if you've got a good captain on your tech line, what a great boat.
If you have the ship and you're used to having a U.S. battleship in your grouping, why not Missouri with its radar?
Yeah, or even Iowa with its heel, right?
Right. Or there's a lot of stuff that's pretty interesting that isn't. There was somebody made one of the guys made a comment on the Discord earlier in regards to week 1 with all the crazy builds where they wanted to do. Was it four Poltavas?
No, four Borodinos.
4 Borodinos and 2 Illinois.
And I thought to myself, yeah, that's gonna happen.
I said, yeah, man, two tier 9 cruiser battleships and 4 Russian radar battleships. That sounds great.
And if you sailed around as a formation and you chained those radars just right, I think you could chain them constantly.
Just gross.
What a horrible thing to suggest. I had a thing I wanted to comment about Schroder. Schroder's weird in a lot of ways. It's got a strange following of people who think it's really powerful, and some of those people are really good at World of Warships, so they know something I don't, I think. And one of the things that, if Schroder had smoke, and I'm going to get things thrown at me from the audience and maybe from your house, Skada. If it had smoke, it could sort of fill a Napoli role in that it's fast, it's got secondaries, it's got relatively low conceal, it can heal itself. Obviously, it's lacking that smoke, so it can't do the things that a Napoli does. It's not as tanky as a Napoli, but we're down a tier. Honestly, we're down 2 tiers, right? So I think there are some people who are going to be able to use Schroder. I think they're going to want to pair it with a smoke destroyer to try to get some of that work done. And I don't know if we'll see that or not, but to me, in my mind, that's at least an interesting experiment. I don't know that it's one our clan is going to be interested in trying, but I suspect somebody will.
Yeah, I mean, if you can take a cruiser with tier 4 battleship guns, you got to do it.
Tier 3, I think. They're also on the Konig. Those shells, why? Oh man, I threw my supper at Clyde, says Gaelic Knight. It's okay to be offended, Gaelic Knight.
No, there's people that like that boat. I don't get the value behind it. I've heard that it's really good in co-ops if you have a mission
For
where you have to
secondaries, and
farm fires, and you
we had
just
that
like
discussion in Discord.
charge forward and like hit the turbos and like let the secondaries light fires for you. Maybe, I don't know. I don't like it. It's not my jam.
No, it's got a lot of weaknesses, but yeah, there is a cadre of people who are big Schroder fans. So it is interesting that it's on this limited list, and I think some of the possibilities that we just talked about and weird ways you can pair it with other ships might make it strong enough to be kind of fun for that. A little bit just to demonstrate a bit about how the spreadsheet works. This is player one. This row represents that player. If we assign them 2 ships, this box turns red and tells you there's too many ships. So we got to set one of those back to unset. If we added another Lenin in this box, that's illegal. We can only have 1 Lenin, so it tells you it's an illegal group. You can reference this chart to understand how that is illegal. And of course, we also had, by the way, 2 ships for 1 player, so it let us know both, which is useful as well. The other thing that you can't do is grab one of these hybrid battleships. Say we grab Delaware, that's going to make the Lenin group illegal, because remember, the Lenin group down here, group D, you can have a Lenin or a Ruprecht or a Massachusetts or any of the hybrids. You can't have a hybrid and a Lenin. That's why that group is illegal. Same with the Alaska group. So there's a couple of things there that'll help you understand when you've created an illegal group. So for anybody who wants to try to use this spreadsheet for your own team, your own clan, or whatever, some of those tools are there to help you out. You've flipped a card to Ignacio Allende. Are you thinking Ignacio might be an interesting 6th man?
I just like that boat. I don't know if it's any good and competitive. I think again, I was talking with Odie last night when he was sending me these massive score screens he was getting in Santander, and I said, in my experience with those ships, it's hard to farm late random match damage without being able to light fires. And the only way I usually had big damage in those ships is if I land some torpedoes. But the torpedoes are good on them and they have nice range, and the ships are interesting with the radar. I think the gimmick with that line could be trying if you have less targets, because it might be harder to gin up the F key.
You might not have the opportunity to get juiced.
Yeah, which then makes it kind of a struggle bus, but
yeah,
they'd be fun to play. It might be fun to try out. I don't know.
I do wonder.
I'm just looking at the list because the list for cruisers is so long.
Yeah,
like you could dork around with a Tone if you want to have planes, and Tony's still a nice cruiser with really good concealment and a heel and like hydros and good non-airplane torpedoes, and you can fly planes around every once in a while and look for stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Srevna says, what about the new Pan American premium cruiser? That's the Almirante Grau that he's talking about. I think Grau could work. I wouldn't put it, it's not going to be one of my first 5, but it could be that 6th man ship, that 6th player, where if you're looking for something there, kind of like I talked about in the hot take video about that ship, it doesn't unseat our DPM masters, but I think in the right position, that ship can be really, really damaging and really, 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 really powerful. And it doesn't suffer from the same problem that Allende does, where Allende needs to hit you to charge up its tools. It just needs to stay dark, and with a reasonably good conceal, it can do that for sure.
Yeah, I could imagine smoking in one of those like you would do with a light cruiser and normal clans, and
yep.
You could smoke one of those in. If you smoked it in American smoke, it would be able to recharge its F button and still be shooting while it did it.
You could do it twice. Right,
which is
the American
dope.
smoke is 2 minutes long, and your recharge takes 50 seconds. So you could do it 2 and almost a half times, right? So I think that ship could work, and its DPM, even when it's not in turbo booster mode for its main battery, is still pretty good. It's still 200,000, I think. I can't remember if that's AP or HE, but I think it's AP is.
You're just taking a real
higher
glass cannon because it doesn't have a lot of hit points. So
correct. Yeah.
And you're doing Chapayev's already not like a beastly cruiser in regards to that. Chappie doesn't have a heel, does it?
No, it doesn't. So what Chappie has over Grau, if I was to make the counterpoint and say don't take Grau, take Chappie, is it's got 50,000 more DPM. It's got 17 point something kilometer guns instead of 16 point something kilometer guns. 16.1 versus like 17.4, I think. It's got very flat arc, so you tend to hit what you're clicking on. It's got a 12-kilometer radar instead of only hydros. So Chappie's got a lot of tools in the toolbox. It has hydros and radar, I think.
Yeah.
I think I'm remembering.
If you want to
right
take
there.
like a third cruiser, if you're going to have a third cruiser that's just like a tier 8 DPS cruiser, and you were talking about mines or you're talking about Bayard, I think even something like Arbin might be interesting because of the torpedoes.
With the smoke and the torps, maybe.
Yeah. The torps work, and the guns on it are you lighting fires or rat-a-tat-tatting. I mean, but you're hiding in smoke more. I mean, it just depends on how many raiders are going to push you out. How many, like in this lineup that you've created, you've got like 3 radars, including a destroyer radar, and you've got Lo Yang with its super long hydro range. Like, you know,
Ice
something like
says,
that then becomes a hindrance.
Yeah. And Ice Cube says Sejong for that matter. Again, it's that precious tier 9 slot, maybe. I don't know if I'd build my team around a Pan-Asian cruiser, but I think it could be there. I do think the radars would be the problem with those Pan-Asian cruisers. The smoke's fantastic, except that you're in a competitive mode where everybody's going to bring sensors, or at least, you know, you're not going to run into teams that don't have sensors.
Like I really like Cleveland or Montpelier, and the only thing that turns me away from wanting to play either of those is the lack of a heal. But they're both like really good, and I like I mean, like I played a bunch of tier 8 clans in Baltimore. That was like a long time ago, but you know, Baltimore's a good boat. I would rather take Baltimore than Buffalo. If I was gonna take, you know, if I wanted to mess around and I wasn't gonna take Baltimore, then I'd be looking at something like Anchorage.
Anchorage would be interesting. I think, gosh, I like the torpedoes on Anchorage. I like the smoke on Anchorage. Again, when you can work it with the sensors and things. I like the guns on Baltimore better, but
yeah.
I mean, that's the trade-off, I suppose, right?
I mean, Anchorage is like the Buffalo hull and number of guns, but they're New Orleans guns, I think, or they're the same guns off Wichita or something. Like they're lesser. You know, ostensibly you could see maybe somebody wants to take Rochester if they want to have that US style cruiser with it's a premium but have smoke. I don't know. There's just so many choices at this tier. I know Odie talked about when we talked about this before, using one of the tier 9 slots for Tulsa. And I think that's probably like Odie stands alone opinion because he really likes Tulsa.
Yes.
But it's not necessarily a ship I would want to play in this scenario.
Yeah, and I think I'd try to sell him on a tier 8 cruiser of similar performance and be like,
look, man, trade,
look, man, I'm not gonna trade my Alaska for Tulsa. It's just not happening. But you know, I think, you know, we talk a lot about taking a ship that you're comfortable in as well, right? We know that's powerful. To make sure you're taking a boat that you can do work in. And maybe you suck at Alaska and you can make Tulsa work. And if that's something your clan can get behind and rally, don't let us tell you to not take a Tulsa, right? But
yeah, and ultimately, if your clan doesn't have access to an Alaska or a Kronshtadt, then maybe you spend that tier 9 slot on something like Brest or Carnot that's more easily available, and then just make sure that your other, you know, tier 8 cruiser that you take is you know, like a US radar cruiser, like a Cleveland or something
Baltimore,
like that, so that you
Cleveland,
have
Congress.
so you have some long range, you know, longer duration US radar or something. Because again, we have a lot of people that have Alaska in our clan, but Alaska is another ship that hasn't been around much for a while. So
there's going to be a lot of players who don't have that direct access. And you know, when you talk about Congress, it's the Alaska we have at home. No, we have Alaska at home, and it's, you know, it's a down-tiered ship and things. I still like Congress. I find it to be enjoyable to play, and it's got the same 305 millimeter, you know, size shells at least, and it doesn't put out the same amount of punch, but it does have the radar. You know, it does have the sensors. It does have some tankiness. So I think Congress is a boat that you could make work.
I don't mind that Congress exists or that it has the same guns. I don't mind that it has less of them, you know, in those weird turrets that it has.
Yeah, it's got the.
What I hate about Congress is the punitive reload.
The reload is what, 20 seconds? I think it's long.
Brutal. It's brutal.
Long. Yep. And so that when we talk about that, I used my radar. Now you guys have to kill the guy because my reload is 20 seconds, right? Yeah. Like that sucks. And we don't want to be in that scenario in a competitive. So that's why you can't take 3 Congresses, a Lenin, and then, you know, some destroyers that are in the wrong position to get the DPM, right? You need something like a Chapayev, you need something like a Cleveland, you need something like a Mines to close the deal on that stuff.
I'm going to presume, and I'll say this, and then we'll find out the meta later, and I was completely wrong, but you don't want like 3 slow reloading cruisers with like 2 torpedo DDs, like, you know, like
yes, there you go. Torpedo DDs.
You're just not going to get anything done, right? You're just not going to get anything done in that layout.
Right.
I don't think. Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, it wouldn't be the first time. So.
Right.
But I think there's just a lot of fun options that you could. I think another ship I would think might be fun is San Diego as well.
I was going to talk about that as well. Hold that thought for just a moment. Brand, you asked about Congress. So we just got to mention the weird turret layout. So it's a 3-barrel turret and a 2-barrel turret with another 2-barrel outback. So yes, it's 7 guns, which is an odd mix, whereas Alaska has 9 of those guns. And then Leviathan said, is Kutuzov unrestricted? Kutuzov is not restricted. You can use Kutuzov as you'd like. And then I'd love to talk with you about San Diego. I guess what's drawing you there? There's the obvious strengths of the ship, but
yeah, I mean, I just like the boat. I mean, it's another tier 8 cruiser with a heel. So like, I think there's value in that. It has obviously really good DPM and high rate of fire, and then it has the reload booster gimmick that you can turn on the loader gimmick. It has SAP and AP, and that SAP works really well at these kind of tiers. You know, if you're fighting battleship superstructures, obviously 8s or 9s, it's going to work well on. You're going to get chunky damage, and it also has, you know, decent torpedo armament. It's not like Atlanta where you have like the danger close torpedoes. It actually has torpedoes you can chuck and run and use. So, you know, something like Atlanta or something like San Diego, I don't think is a bad choice. Again, it's a super light cruiser, so you're going to have like, you know, low hit point count, but it does have heals, and I don't know. I like the ship. I think you can put it in more dangerous situations than you can Atlanta because it has a little bit. I think San Diego's got like an extra strip of armor down the side, kind of like Edgar to Minotaur or whatever, and so it allows you at angles to bounce some stuff at this tier. You got to remember, there's what, only a couple of. Is it just Sun Yat-sen that could be there that could have full overmatch at 457?
I think that's the only one I can come up with. I thought about it a couple of times.
It's all 406s and 380s. I guess then on the battleships, and you know, that gives you that opportunity where, especially when you're looking at some of these cruisers like that have like a Kronshtadt we were talking about. One of Kronstadt's weaknesses is it has like a 25 millimeter bow, which is like, oh, that's a weakness. Well, it is on a super Wawa cruiser like that. And so like that helps though, because you can bounce those 15-inch shells. You know, you don't have to worry about getting overmatched by 457s unless there's a Sun Yat-sen.
Yeah.
Then all bets are off. You're in trouble because there's Sun Yat-sen is there.
And I feel like people are going to bring that. I don't know that it's the wisest pick. You know, I feel like I'd want to spend my tier 9 somewhere else. But like if we took this exact layout that we've got here, swap that Lenin for a Sun Yat-sen, and somebody was able to, you know, hit their shots with it, you know, that'd be fantastic, you know. Leviathan says Kutuzov should be a top pick with its DPM and smoke. Absolutely. We talked about that earlier in the discussion, and we agree. I think Kutuzov is one of those optional 6th player ships, right? We were leaving this line kind of open and then building kind of a base team around here. I don't know that this is the right team necessarily, but I think at this point we're bouncing around talking about all kinds of ships. But
yeah, and there's other
on
stuff
the
like
list for sure.
If we have if our conception is that like Lenin is like that anchor because it's good, and again, that's a ship not everybody has access to, or you're going to bring in Alaska, then you start talking about, well, I could bring a Chappie, I could bring that black, and then we talk like you could, there's a couple of things you could trade out at 9 if you're trying to do something different with black. But if you wanted, you know, you could put a Chung Mu there. If you don't have a black, you're not going to get smoke, which is a problem, but you can do some interesting things with black there. But if you don't have like access to a Lo Yang, there are other options that you can take, you know, that give you a quasi similar play style, which is like medium range torpedoes and strong hydros with smoke. And you know, you could take a Z23 there. Just the Tech Tree German. It's not a bad boat. It's not probably, you know, it's not as good as Lo Yang, but you know, it's not bad.
No,
or you could run There's some other weird stuff you could run there. No, not Z44. That's a tier 9.
That's a tier 9. That's awfully expensive. Z23 is a good boat. It's got the sensors. It can hit what it clicks on. Its DPM's a little bit lower than some of the boats that are on the restricted list, and that's one of the reasons why people don't pick it. But it is not a bad little boat.
Run like Frost Knight. I was going to say that. Like maybe you want to run Z35 there if you have one. I'm not a huge fan of Z35, but it has hydros and smokes. It's got those short smokes.
You can make Z35 work.
I think but it has good hydros. But then there's other stuff at 8 that has good hydros too, like your old friend Silly Wangi.
Yeah,
those are incredibly good hydros.
I think depending on what we see with the multi-destroyer meta, deep water torpedoes could be a non-starter. If we decide, if we get in there and people go, no, it's 3DDs all season long, then Silly Wangi, these Pan-Asian cruisers become poor choices. If we do wind up getting in there and everyone's like, nah, man, it's all Cherbourgs all the time, then by all means, get as silly as you want to, right? You go Silly Wangi all day long and you do just fine, or Chungmu for crying out loud.
Well, we've been talking about. We've been talking a lot about that 6 slot running another cruiser, and we'll probably end up doing that in our clan. But where you think you were talking about like a 3DD arrangement, don't you? If you ran something similar to this, wouldn't you go like 2 gunboats and 1 stealthy DD then? Like,
I think there's 2 ways to do it, and one of them is that it's the 2 gunboats. It'd be like a Le Terrible and a Mogador, or Le Terrible and a Mogador, if you can afford it, which you could. You could do a Kiev as well. I like Kiev. I think it's a fine boat, but I think that Le Terrible and Mogador are probably a little bit more appropriate for this environment. Although if you like the heel, right, Kiev is the one to go for on this list.
But you're not going to run Smoke Kiev?
I would not know. I'm not going to do that. But if you did the healing Kiev, then you'd be in good shape. And you could pair that with a Le Terrible and go with what's the concealment on on the Benham there? It's like 5.4, isn't it super low? Like, so you'd have a brilliant spotter, and then you'd have those 2 guys just mowing everybody down, which would be pretty exciting. But yeah, I think the 2 gunboat thing is going to likely be the pick if people run 3DDs. I'm just worried that 3DDs won't be viable because you won't have enough hit points on the team without 2 battleships.
What if instead of your other 9, what about ZF6?
I like ZF6. I think that's a fantastic pick, and I am definitely going to be tempted if I get rotated into a DD slot to take it this season. Great concealment, reload booster, decent speed. Handling it gets around okay.
It smoke too, right?
Yes, it does. Yeah, and when you spot people, you heal, except for not in clan battles. So that would be cool if that kicked off and you're using the right captain, but that's not a thing in clan battles.
No GMAC Takahashi is not bad. GMAC, who recently unquit World of Warships. He quit a couple months ago, and then he unquit, and he sends me fun messages because GMAC's in our clan, and I love logging when I log in every day because I know I'm going to have a few cranky messages from GMAC.
Yeah.
Today's messages were about Orkin, which were enjoyable, and he was it's Orkin. But yeah, no, we were talking the other day about the IJN lights, and we still think that was like the lamest line of last year, and and stuff. So yeah, no Takahashi. I think I like looking at the DD list of stuff that's in the unrestricted ships too. I think there's some interesting stuff over here. Obviously Velos, which isn't they finally made Velos available to people who just wanted to hemorrhage money on it, right? Like
I think you can buy Velos. Let's go find out.
I think Velos is an interesting ship because it's fun to play. I don't know how it would be competitive. I don't think Nutrishimi is kind of interesting. I don't know. I don't want to blow my 9 on that.
You can buy Velos for 19.3. So yep, it's available for lots of money.
My favorite friends, the Harakaze and the High School Fleet Harakaze 2, are both on the list at tier 8.
GMAC predicted earlier that I'd go for Udaloy. I like Udaloy. I don't know that I would pick it over Mogador in this mode. But if Mogador gets fully banned or something, and we got to remember, in 2 weeks, we could see a different set of bans, right? At which point this spreadsheet will no longer work. We'll have to tweak it or something if it becomes complex enough. But yeah, I mean, I think if Mogador got banned or something like that, I could see me playing an Udaloy, but I don't think it would be popular.
Is this where we see the rise of the Kuniberte?
The Kuniberte? No, I think the community has decided that's a bad boat. I don't think it's a bad boat, but
what about,
I don't think it'd be real popular.
What about using one of your 9s on Paolo Emilio?
Probably not Paolo, but I was looking at Groningen and Friesland. Do you think there are going to be some Friesland and Groningen Chads who bring those?
There's a lot of really good players that really enjoy those boats. I'm not a huge fan of them, but
there's a lot of other players that really enjoy those boats too.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I get it. I like that boat well enough for randoms. I don't know about for this.
I don't know. Yeah, that would have to. Would that be in like a 3DD build? Like, would that guy need to smoke up with a spotter? He probably would. I think.
I mean, unless somebody's dumb enough to get his hydro range.
Yeah, I played.
But I mean, people are going to get spotted, and he'd be able to farm whatever your battleship was, just like they do in random.
That's the thing, is your battleship would be the one who would be at risk there. That's a strategy where they're trying to eliminate the battleship. Helmet says Lo Yang's a better pick. I agree. I think I would go with Lo Yang because of the ability for Lo Yang to spot for the team, which is why I did go with Lo Yang, actually.
Looking at the battleship list of things that aren't Lenin and like.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in here.
A lot about you can get on halt out there. It's good.
You could. Does on halt have the ability to move? I don't know if it goes fast enough. Must be this fast to ride this ride.
There's probably a hot take video people can go check out on that. Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot. I mean, a lot of the battleships, a lot of the ones on this list that are interesting to me are 9s, and I don't know that I'd want to use that for that. I really think you get more bang for your buck if you use your 9 on obviously on the Alaska, and then on some other destroyer personally. But yeah, I think if you went with some of the tier 9 battleships again that aren't restricted, like Missouri, or if you want to do a like we talked about before, like a Borodino, where you have like a radar destroyer at tier 8. Dare I say Constellation, another radar destroyer at tier 8.
You did dare.
Nobody wants to play Constellation. I mean, it's got torps.
It does. I was thinking about Gascon. I think you and I like Gascon. I know North American CC Jurok is like the biggest Gascon fanboy in the world. It's got the fast heals like Massachusetts does, the 40-second heals. But it doesn't have as big of guns. I think they're 380s on that thing.
Yeah, same guns as Richelieu or Alsace or Bourgogne for that matter. 15-inch guns are fine. Like you get less overpins with those guns. It's fine, and you can spam HE with them, and they do good damage. The problem with Gascon is the turret layout, right? Like if you want to get more than 4 shots going, you've got to give a lot more side up to do it. If you want to play that, you might as well just play Richelieu and not have to do that. Like just keep your guns forward. You lose out on that healing stuff. Now something like Jean Bart is interesting to me because Jean Bart is a very powerful premium ship, and it's not banned at all.
I thought about this when I was making the spreadsheet, but forgot about it entirely. I think Jean Bart could be a really interesting pick, and I think that's a place where someone might choose to spend a 9.
Yeah. Like
somebody could spend a 9 for JB.
Jean Bart's great, and it's not like an armored monster or whatever. So like, if you end up against like a bomber or a Prunes or Ruprecht, you might get secondary to death because the armor on it. But like, the reload booster and stuff on it, Jean Bart's a really strong ship, and the fact that it's like you look down there, it's like nope, just George and Musashi because of overmatch. Like okay, cool.
And they're like, cool, let's go Jean Bart, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff on this list that's stuff that's fun to play. Even like Pommern. I don't know if I want to play that in competitive because I feel like I get burnt down before I get anything done. But
yeah. I think Pommern's a thing. I could see somebody bringing a Giuseppe Verde for secondary tomfoolery. We mentioned Minnesota already. We talked about Iowa for its big heal. We didn't talk about Vladivostok yet, but if you're looking at a tier 8, you don't have a Lenin. I mean, Vlad is tough. When you get to Vlad, you're like, oh, these ships are coming alive for me in that Russian battleship line. So I think, for somebody who's looking to avoid a premium too, try to save money, maybe you're a free-to-play player, Vlad is a fantastic pick, and I think we're going to see those out there in force as well.
Yeah, I think if I was building if I wasn't doing premiums or whatever, I think Vlad would be my top battleship pick at tier 8.
It's got a lot of hit points.
It's really good. You know, you
good.
can. North Carolina is not bad either, obviously.
No,
but,
you could do North Carolina.
You know, but like I wouldn't be like reaching for like a Mage or you know, even Bismarck really. Like Zeton probably not because of the hit point situation. But so Vladivostok to me would be like your number one pick for, you know, if you're doing a tier 8 tech line battleship.
My thought for that when I was thinking it was Vlad, Richelieu, and maybe North Carolina if you just like that classic American style battleship. You know, sticking with the tier 8 tech line ships for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's probably the extent of the we actually had more conversation here than I thought, but just so you guys know, this tool is out there. You can get a copy of this spreadsheet and get on like Skada and I just did, talk with your clan, build a lineup of some kind, and kind of have it out just like we just did, to sort of get your week 1 or maybe your week 2, honestly, set up. Please go grab that, or no, don't please. I don't care if you really use it or not, but you can if you wish. If it pleases you, go grab a copy of the spreadsheet and play with it. There's a little video that explains what we just talked about today and a little bit more. So thanks a ton for watching this, I guess. I don't know. I wasn't going to put this on YouTube, but we actually had a pretty cool chat there. So maybe we'll plug this onto YouTube as well, and let folks.
I'm trying to build the all tech tree.
You want to build an
really
okay?
quick.
Let's do that. Let's build a
somebody just said quick build an all tech tree team, and I'm like, okay.
Grant said quick challenge. I like it.
I picked Mogador because I think that out of those, you know, you look at which ones in this list are limited. That's one of the few. It's a tech tree boat.
So you got a Vlad and a Chappie. You want?
I left your Chappie.
Yeah.
I don't care. That's fine.
I don't care.
You can.
What's our?
You could do.
Do you want to do like a Brest for the big cruiser? Do we want a big cruiser?
Yeah.
We don't even need
one. We did Brest and Mogador. There's our 2 9s, and those are both tech line boats. But you know, I don't know if Brest is really worth taking.
I don't know if it is necessarily.
I mean, what else? What are you gonna take at tier 9 that's tech tree that's not on this list?
What if it's the Delaware?
Okay.
So we throw Vlad to the wind. We throw Vlad out. We put Delaware in. So you got that one. I'll grab Delaware here. So now we're building a really wacky division, but you got Delaware there. Then you do, I'll move Chappie up to second player. Oops, I meant to say unset. And I'll just click there and type Chappie. Then you got a Mogador. And then would you go for like a Baltimore at that point? Let me go back to my cruiser list. You know what could be interesting is like Amalfi or Martel for like that strike from the side.
I think you need another
2 radars though, don't we?
You need another radar cruiser, so I would probably take I'd probably take Baltimore for the other one, I think.
You could do oh no, we already used our 9s.
Yeah, I wouldn't do Tallinn over Baltimore probably,
No.
or you could do, or if you wanted to do radar Edinburgh, you could, but at least then you have a heel. But
let's throw Edinburgh in there just for fun. I think people would. I think that's actually a pretty strong pick. And we'll go with Star Edinburgh. No, wait, no, hang on, that's a premium.
No, you have to do the normal one.
We got to go with standard fare. Edinburgh. There we go. So now we got Edinburgh. We got Chappie, Edinburgh, Delaware, because we're being difficult.
Oh look, we're in Delaware.
Oh look, we're in Delaware.
So we need more DD.
Yeah. So now, do we have a Hydro Techline DD?
Would it have to be Z23 or
Z30?
like,
or no, Z35 is a premium. Lightning?
So what?
Does Lightning have Hydros?
Yeah. I'd rather. That makes me want to spend one of my 9s on Jutland. I like Jutland.
Do we have
at that
another
point,
9? Oh no, we didn't.
At that point, I'd spend one of my 9s on Z46, but we don't have it because we're using Delaware and Mogador.
That's true. I mean, we could undo the Delaware pick. I just thought it'd be fun to do.
Let's leave the Delaware there. It's weird. Put
weird.
Z23 there.
Okay.
Z23 is fine. It has like It's like medium. It has like hydros and smoke, and it's like got okay torps and okay guns. It's like medium.
Yeah. No, I think Z23 could work. Let me take a look at our DDs real quick. Make sure there's nothing I would choose over it. There might be, but tech line only? No, I think it might be Z23. I mean, you could choose a Benson and not have hydro, right? But
you could do radar Shenyang.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
Hope for the best with the deep waters. But then you're bringing like no smoke, other because you already said you're doing a radar Edinburgh, and your Mogador isn't smoking, right? So like, is your sixth ship a cruiser or is your sixth ship a destroyer?
So in this build, what I really want to plug in there, and it's a premium, is like an Otago, right? A cruiser on the, maybe it's a Charles Martel is what I want to plug in there. Oh, you're fine, Black Mamba Jumbo. You walked in, didn't know what you were doing. I think Loyang's the boat I wanted, but we bought a Z23 because it's tech line. So it could be like a Charles Martel, or it could be a destroyer. If it was a destroyer, I would throw a Kiev into this mix. You might pick a different destroyer because I have a propensity to like those types of gunboats, but
I don't dislike the idea. I don't like dislike the idea of using the Kiev there with the Mogador, but then the Z23 isn't low enough to detect to do what I want to
really do the thing. You'd switch him out for a Benson, maybe.
You
lose the hydro.
I think Lightning's sneakier. It doesn't have this good a hydro.
That's true. You could do Lightning. Lightning's conceal's pretty good. How good is it? I'll pull it up here real quick. I think it's in the 5s.
I'm not gonna lie. In this scenario, the Tech Tree boat, the Tech Tree Tier 8 destroyer that I want to take would be the what is it? The
5.5s.
What is it? The Split.
Yeah, just looking at the
stats because it has radar and smoke, and is a gunboat.
Well, in partway through the season, you might be able to do that, right? But
yeah,
the 5.5 conceal on Lightning could work. So if you switched for Lightning, and I'm not suggesting we have to, you could do that and then do a Kiev or a Fantask, which would be interesting. But yeah,
dude, just do it. Who cares? Like, okay, we'll do that, and then
I'm just thinking out loud. So then if you did Kiev over there, you'd have Kiev, you'd have Lightning, Mogator. Now that would be if you went for destroyer. I don't
think you can take Kiev because you've made
you're right. It's an illegal group.
You've proved the spreadsheet works
because
right? You've got Delaware and
Delaware. You're right. We can't take that or Le Fantasque. So in that case, what do we take? I want to put a.
Cuniberte.
You could do Cuniberte. You could do an Olin or something.
What's the Tier 8 German gunboat? Take that.
Is this where we put Udaloy in? Nope, it's a Tier 9.
Oh, you have to take Ognavoy.
Yuck, nope. Not doing that. Oh, Akazuki. Akazuki's in a limited group as well.
Yeah, I don't think.
But we could. No, we could. We could take it. You can have 2 from this group. Aki might be okay.
Yeah,
where is it?
Do that.
Yeah. Where's Akazuki?
It's in the group.
Oh, it's in a group.
Group
That's right.
C.
It's in Group C.
There you go.
A dork.
I did it.
Thanks, man.
There you go. There's a really weird. There's a lineup that I wouldn't want to play in. Everybody. I don't know.
Honestly, that's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. Honestly, that's pretty good.
Grab a screenshot because we're going to try that lineup in clans at least one game with our friends.
Well, this is a file. We've saved it. It's all.
And I'm pretty sure that I'll have to play the Delaware because I don't know if anybody else.
I have Delaware. I could do it.
Yeah.
You don't want me in Delaware.
You're a big fan of like Mogador or something. Like
I'd probably have to fight Brand
I don't want to play.
Mogador.
I don't want to play Chappie or Edinburgh. So
I would play either of those cruisers or Mogador, but I will not play Lightning or Aki because I hate those two.
I can play Akazuki. I actually used to be relatively comfortable in Akazuki. I just haven't played it a lot.
Yeah, I'm just bad at those 2 boats. I think those are both good boats at the bottom. Players 5 and 6 here, but I can't make them work. somebody else.
But you could
it.
do this, folks. This is a free-to-play lineup.
You could, and honestly, I don't think it's that bad.
You got a couple radars.
Those are good boats.
You got a couple smoke DDs. Even though the British one's a shitty smoke, you got the Mogador, which is really powerful, and then you can fly around with the Delaware's bombers and spot stuff.
Okay, now one quick tweak. What if we said this Delaware thing ain't working for us? Now we've got another 9, and we've freed up another group.
Well, yeah, then you go back to Vlad, because that's better. And
or you do Jumbart. Oh wait, no, that's a premium. We're doing tech.
Right. You go back to Vlad, and then a stake instead of doing.
You do Kidda.
You could do Kidda, or you could do Kidda, and that would be an improvement.
Or Jutland, which would be a bigger improvement, I think.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'd take Jutland or Z46, please.
Yeah, I think you gotta go Jutland.
Because I like Jutland.
I like Z46 too.
Yeah.
Where's the Jutland? Actually, I don't have to know where it is. I just have to know how to spell it. There we go.
Yeah, it's a soft J.
It's a Hewland. Yeah, I actually think I like this lineup better.
Yeah, there's more boats in that lineup that I would want to play.
Yeah, I would play any of those boats except for Aki. And again, Aki a good boat, but Clyde and Aki is a bad boat. So I'd want someone else to do better.
I'm still like sus on these cruisers, but I think, while I appreciate that the Edinburgh has a heel and we're talking about running a radar Edinburgh, like if I was going to take an AP only cruiser there, I'd almost rather take Ignacio Allen.
The other thing that's interesting about this is, that's true too about Allende, is you could change this guy to unset and you could come over here to group A and grab like Cherbourg, and that's still illegal.
Yeah.
And that gives you some punch, right? Now you've got Chappie and then the DPM of Mogador and Jutland, which are making up for not having another DPM cruiser, but you got that punch and that heel and that hydro from Cherbourg. Yeah. That's actually a really strong lineup too.
Yeah, that's probably a better lineup than having Edmund.
Ice Cube says Jutland is so much better than Lightning. Agreed. G-Max says, what about Soyuz? You could do Soyuz, but I think I'd rather have a Jutland instead of a Lightning than a Soyuz over a Vlad. I actually like, pound for pound, I think I like Vlad more than I like Soyuz.
I like Vlad better than I like Soyuz. That's one of those ones where the 9's kind of a dip. Like, Vlad feels really strong, and then Kremlin is obviously Kremlin, but Soyuz has always felt like crap to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Maz says the 2 DDs should be Le Fantasque and a Smoke Hydro DD for cat fights. You could totally do that. Le Fantasque along with the Z23. Again, sticking with our tech line only build. That would be an option. And now that we don't have Nebraska, that's possible because of Group B, right? Yeah. Which made that possible for us. But anyway, well, cool. That was a good suggestion. Thank you, Grant Y, for proposing that we try to talk through the tech line only problem, which I think is an interesting experiment that we should do as players.
We went from the banned ships that nobody can get anymore problem
to the what if I was a free-to-play player who started playing last year problem.
Most of the time in clans and competitive, the majority of boats are tech tree boats.
Yeah, a lot of them are, a big chunk of them, especially when we're talking tier 10s. It'll be interesting to see what happens with this Tier 8 season. A lot of premiums exist at Tier 8 for the reasons you talked about earlier, so I suspect that we'll see a lot of premiums again. Maz says, you have to bring a Hydrid. You know, I think people value that spotting, and I'll say this, and you guys can throw tomatoes, slightly more than it's worth. I think it's good, but I think it's important to have spotting and to see stuff, but there are other ways to get it. In clan battles, teams are mostly predictable. Even though I have been surprised in clan battles before, it's not that you don't know where the danger is coming from. You know what their objectives are. And so that spotting is valuable, but it's not quite as valuable as I think the community fears it is. Now, that's one Clyde's opinion. I could be wrong and have been many times. I don't know, Skada, what do you think? Do we have to have a hybrid ship, or else you're going to lose all your battles this year? And I know that's being hyperbolic, but
I really think Nebraska's junk. So if you're going to do it, you have to pop a 9 and bring Kearsarge or
that's
Delaware.
My fear too, and that makes pick so expensive.
That makes it more effective to me, because Nebraska just 6 guns forward with that reload, and it's not It's not overtly battleshipy. It's not like it's tanky. It doesn't bring anything else to the table other than the planes at that point. You know, at least with the Delaware, you have, you know, more guns, and it, you know, you can play it more like Iowa.
And we just got a 587 viewer raid from
that's,
Overlord Bo.
That's nice of Overlord Bo. Somebody, clearly nobody else is online. He's made a mistake.
Hello, Overlord Bo. Speaking of people who played hybrids in clan battles, one of our last clan battles this season was against Overlord Bo's clan, and he was in a hybrid, and he struck me with airplanes. You're joining us as we're kind of winding down on our clan battles discussion, but we're glad to have you here. Bo, thank you a ton for swinging on in with the raid, man. I appreciate you. And with that, folks, we're going to swing back over and play some games of World of Warships. You kind of came in at the tail end of things, and we're super stoked about you. I'm going to hide our web browser. There we go. And now we can play WoWs.